Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening to formally launch the Asian Australian Lawyers Association in New South Wales. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. We're excited to have a number of distinguished guests and attendees this evening. So just bear with me. We've got the Honourable Justice Margaret Beasley, President of the New South Wales Court of Appeal, the Honourable Justice Brian Preston, Chief Judge of the Land and Environment Court of New South Wales, and Mrs Judith Preston, the Honourable Justice Robertson Wright, President of the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal, the Honourable Justices Jane Jago and John Logan from the Federal Court of Australia, Ms Shannon Thompson, representing the New South Wales Attorney General, the Honourable Gabrielle Upton MP, the Honourable Paul Lynch MP, Shadow Attorney General, the Consul General of the Philippines, Anne Louise, Mr Robert Koch, Councillor for the City of Sydney, Mr Bernard Lowe, Deputy Director of the Hong Kong Economic Trade Office in Sydney, our keynote speaker tonight, the Honourable Michael Kirby, AC CMG, Dr Tim Soutphommasane, Race Discrimination Commissioner from the Australian Human Rights Commission, who we'll also hear from a little bit later on, Professor Joellen Riley, Dean of the Sydney Law School at the University of Sydney, Professor David Dixon, Dean of the Law at the University of New South Wales, Professor Natalie Stonoff, representing the Law Faculty at the University of Technology, Sydney, Dr David McMullen, representing the Law Faculty at Macquarie University, Mr Stuart Clark, President-elect, and Mr Mike Brett Young, Acting Secretary-General from the Law Council of Australia, Ms Jane Needham, SC, President of the New South Wales Bar Association, Mr Michael Tidbull, CEO of the Law Society of New South Wales, Ms Belinda Walker, Executive Officer, Law Asia, Ms Lee May Saw, President of the Women Lawyers Association of New South Wales, Presidents and representatives of the New South Wales branches or chapters of the Australia-China Business Council, the Australia-Singapore Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Australia-Indonesia Business Council, the Hong Kong Australia Business Association, and the Australia-India Business Council. Mr Chris Freeland, National Managing Partner of Baker & McKenzie, Ms Sue Kench, Managing Partner Australia, and Ms Katrina Raffi, Partner in Charge Sydney, King & Wood Mallesons, Ms Jeff Hoffman, Partner in Charge Sydney, and Ms Alison Woolsey, Head of Strategy and Diversity at Clayton Utes, Ms Di Lee, CEO of Zorn, the Diverse Australasian Women Network, and QAA panellists tonight, if you can make it home in time. Members of the AALA Executive Committee who've flown up from Melbourne to be in attendance tonight. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I wanted to briefly explain why the AALA was formed and some of the things we've been doing. As many of you will know, the AALA was formed in 2013 and was the first association in Australia to focus on the growing number of Asian Australians in the legal profession. In 2013, I had the privilege to serve as the President of the Law Institute of Victoria, a venerable institution that dates back some 156 years. However, when I was appointed to that role, it was somewhat remarkable that I was the first person of Asian heritage to do so. And it caused me to reflect on the limited number of Asian Australians that I'd seen appointed as partners in our major law firms, the dearth of Asian Australian counsel, particularly silks, and the almost complete absence of Asian Australians in the judiciary. So it was that with a small group of Asian Australians with whom I was acquainted, we resolved to form the AALA to create greater cultural diversity and understanding within the senior ranks of the legal profession, as well as to develop links with other legal associations in our region through organisations like Law Asia, which is holding its annual conference in Sydney later this week, and the Inter-Pacific Bar Association, which is holding its annual conference in Kuala Lumpur in April next year. You may also know that earlier this year we published our report, The Australian Legal Profession, a snapshot of Asian Australian diversity in 2015, which was the first research of its kind focusing on the legal sector, and which suggested that the anecdotal concerns that I had identified were not misplaced. Since then, I've been invited to speak about that research in a variety of forums, and will soon be addressing this topic at the Law Asia conference. Following the launch of our report, we received many inquiries from lawyers based in New South Wales, trying to find out how they could get involved. As a result, when we launched the second year of our mentoring scheme, we made the conscious decision to expand it to include lawyers in New South Wales. We've also been fostering links with like-minded organisations in New South Wales, such as holding 2 leadership conversations in association with Dawn to encourage debate on what Asian Australians have to offer in a leadership context and what will it take for Asian Australians to be accepted in Australian society. And I believe our last conversation will be held in Sydney on Monday the 16th of November at the Ethics Centre on how should Australian society provide genuine opportunities for Asian Australian leadership. Finally, at our annual general meeting held on 8th of September 2015, we approved changes to our constitution to allow for the formation of interstate branches, commencing with this New South Wales branch. Tonight I'm pleased to announce the names of the members of our recently formed New South Wales Branch Committee, who would ask to raise their hands so that people can have a chat to them afterwards. So our branch president is Kingsley Liu from People Solicitors. Down front, here we go. Branch Secretary Devesh Patel from Johnson Winter and Slattery, my firm. And then we have our ordinary committee members, Saddam Hussain from Teddy Timpton Legal, Bernard Khan from Clark and Khan, Fahim Anwar from Cause Chambers Westgarth, Edmund Park from Fagan Utes, Jennifer Go from Lander and Rogers, Breeze Hall from Frederick Jordan Chambers, Tim Wong from Exotica Retail Australia, who is overseas and can't make it tonight. Gerald from Wentworth Selborne Chambers. And advisor to the committee, Olivia Seat from Major Lindsay in Africa, who might be somewhere down the back bench who's helping the registrations. If you're already a member of the AALA, you should have received one of our little pins that I'm wearing here. When you registered, and I hope you wear it with pride. If you're not a member, then you should have received a membership application form, or there's some more at the front. And I sincerely hope you consider joining, because it is important to help us make a real difference in terms of increasing the level of Asian cultural diversity in the legal profession, to benefit from shared learning experiences, and to help us foster links with legal associations in Asia to help provide enhanced opportunities in the region. Also, we've just launched our new website, which now allows members to include a profile of both their area of expertise and their language and other cultural skills, so that when members of the public are actually looking for a family lawyer that can speak Cantonese, they can actually go onto our website and find that person. Turning to the Honourable Michael Kirby, CMG, there's no doubt that he is among those that we might call a legal rock star. So much so that although he only follows 3 people and has never tweeted, I was looking recently and noticed that he had more than 11,000 followers on Twitter, which is about 5 times as many as I've managed to achieve. However, even I was surprised when I mentioned that Michael Kirby was our guest speaker tonight to a visiting lawyer from China that I met up with recently, who exclaimed joyfully that Michael was his favourite NBA player. It seems that something was lost in the translation, and he thought I was talking about some mix between Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. In any event, Michael's fame does precede him, and while he needs no introduction, I'll just briefly encapsulate his stellar legal career by noting that he was appointed in 1975 as Deputy President of the Australian Conciliation and Arbitration Commission. He became the inaugural Chairman of the Australian Law Reform Commission from 1974 to 1984. He went on to be the Judge of the Federal Court of Australia, then President of the New South Wales Court of Appeal, and concurrently President of the Court of Appeal of Solomon Islands. His appointment to the High Court of Australia came in 1996, and as the so-called Great Dissenter, he served 13 years until his retirement in 2009, including acting Chief Justice of Australia on 2 occasions. He's served on too many boards and committees since his retirement from the High Court to mention, otherwise we won't be leaving tonight, other than to note that in 2013 he was appointed chair of the UN Commission of Inquiry on human rights violations in North Korea. And of course, as you will well know, Michael is an outspoken champion of diversity in the legal profession and society more generally. Indeed, he will also be speaking at Law Asia on why Law Asia's lawyers have responsibilities to help reform anti-LGBT laws in our region. Before handing over to Michael, I want to also acknowledge and thank our sponsors for the launch, our gracious host this evening and corporate sponsor, Baker & McKenzie, Clayton Utes, King & Wood Mallisons, Landers & Rogers, the Law Society of New South Wales, Major Lindsay in Africa. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Michael Kirby.